Hello students, welcome to my class. Today we are going to analyze a poem from the great American poet Walt Whitman. Walt Whitman, as you know, is one of the greatest poets of America of all time and also one of the greatest poets of 19th century world literature. Whitman, who is popularly known as the democratic poet, is a legacy holder to Wordsworth in writing about the most common objects of nature, common people, creatures, in very simple language or diction, and he uses free verse in the real term, which liberates any poetic fixity by the stanzaic form. He uses very liberal lines without having any fixity. And more important than his free verse and his spirit of democracy, it is his philosophy that he respects all the binaries of life, body and soul, the transcendent and the real, the man and woman, the small and big, the out and in. So he always declares in his poems that I am a person outgoing by nature. He wants to spend his life, he wants to collect his experiences of life among the openness of life. To him, everyone, everything, every object is equal. There lies his spirit of democracy. And his most memorable work, Leaves of Grass, symbolizes his concept of life, that grass being the common living plant in all parts of the human society or continent, represent all aspects of human life, whether it is a land of the blacks or the whites or the brownies or the yellows, but the grass is same, and the grass also symbolizes that transcendental reality, that the cycle of death and birth is continuous, so nothing to lament, nothing to feel sad for. Life is a celebration. Life is a unlimited celebration of joy. So Whitman, in his poetry, creates a true spirit of life, its joy, and its unlimited possibilities. And because of the unlimited possibilities, life is most enjoyable. And here, today's poem, A Passage to India, which was written in 1869, it is a poem that celebrates the binaries in a very profound manner. 1869 being one of the most memorable time of humanity because of three incidents or three achievements on the part of humanity. What are these achievements? Number one, it was the transcontinental railway line being established in America from east coast to west coast. It was unimaginable in those days, but it is the first transcontinental railway line that made it possible on the part of the people from the eastern coast of America to travel to the west coast through many marvelous landscapes, waterscapes, and so many different types of people, culture, and all those things. The second achievement of man and science during this year was the laying out of the transatlantic cable below the sea connecting Europe with America through the telegraph line. It was the first telegraph cable laid under the ocean and made it possible to communicate between two continents through the vast Atlantic Ocean. And the third achievement was the opening of Suez Canal, which was a piece of land which was dug into a canal to unite on both the sides that of Mediterranean Sea and the Red Sea, and it brought down the distance between Europe and America or Asia to almost half of the distance which was earlier going around the whole African continent. So, these three marvelous achievements of man in 1869 made Whitman overjoyed. In this poem, he is going to celebrate that great achievement of the scientists, but at the same time, he is celebrating not only science but also the old continent, the old culture, the old civilization called India. Because even in 19th century, India was remaining the most mysterious land with its richness in every aspect of life. So, this poem, The Passage to India, this very title, later on in 20th century, in 1924, was taken by E.M. Forster in his great novel with the same title. And in this poem, Whitman is not only celebrating the great feats of science, but also hoping that the science and its achievement is based on the old civilizations, the old knowledges that were contained within the myths, epics, and old cultures, old religions, and they are contributing towards the development of each other. They are complementary to each other, they are not separate. The ancient is not separate from the modern is just an offshoot of the ancient. So, Whitman In this poem, he finds a natural speech. The poem is in the form of, as I told you, that it is in the free verse, it is in the form of the natural speech, and sometimes the feeling of awe is even uncontainable, and it is communicated with loftiness and reverence. And the punctuation of the poem adds to the building excitement. The punctuation is so arranged that it gives only excitement, it adds to the excitement. The poet is excited about the achievement, marvelous achievement of science, but at the same time the poet is also longing to explore that mythical, that mysterious land called India. And the poem is being the praise to Eastern and African Bibles, religions and temples as much as Western ones. In his view, every perspective is worth celebrating. That magnanimous sense of inclusion helps make a Whitman poem so compelling, modern and relevant to the readers even today. So, let us look at the poem. Singing my days, singing the great achievement of the present, singing the strong light works of engineers, our modern wonders. In the old world, the East, the Suez Canal, the new by its mighty railroad spanned, the seas inlaid with eloquent gentle words, yet first to sound and ever sound the cry with thee, O soul, the past, the past, the past. So the poet is overjoyed. The poet is celebrating without restraint these three marvelous achievements of mankind, of science, of modernity: the Suez Canal, the mighty railroad, and the seas inlaid with eloquent, gentle words. That the sea is laid with the telegraph wires, and he is telling, yet fast to sound and ever sound the cry with these, O soul, the past, the past, the past. But he is telling the science should not forget, or man should not forget, that the science is not out of nothing. This science, this marvelous achievement is coming out of the past, the repetition of the past 3 times with exclamation marks suggests that the present is somewhere contained in the past. If we take the 20th century poet T.S. Eliot, he says, the present is in the past and the future is in the present, and the past and the future is somewhere in the past. So, all these things are interconnected, and Whitman in 19th century said the same thing. The modern science is coming out of the past, means man's achievement in the past, man's dreams in the past, man's endeavors in the past. It has not come overnight, it is not a fluke. It is having the soundness of centuries of human endeavors. The past, the dark, unfathomed retrospect, the teeming gulf, the sleepers and the shadows. The past, the infinite greatness of the past. For what is the present after all but a growth out of the past? So he is telling the present is only an outgrowth of the past. And It is the past. What is past? He is defining it is the dark, unfathomed retrospect. It is a deep, unfathomable time and space of human experience, human imagination, human endeavor. All these things constitute the past. It is the infinite greatness as a projectile formed, impelled, passing a certain line, still keeps on. So the present, utterly formed, impelled by the past. So he is telling the present, utterly formed, impelled by the past. The past impelled the present to be formed. Present is coming out of the efforts, out of the churnings, out of the evolutions of the past. Passage, O soul, to India. Eclairize the myths Asiatic, the primitive fables. Then he is telling, passage, O soul, to India. Oh, my soul, you must get the passage to India now. Why? Because of these three things. The Suez Canal, it has definitely reduced the distance and it has made the way shorten, because he is referring to here in the poem about Columbus, who started his journey but lost his way, and till his death he didn't know that he had discovered the West Indies islands. He thought he discovered India. So India was the golden hen. India was in the imagination of all European mind, thus all American mind, as the pinnacle of human glory, the pinnacle of human achievement. So he is telling, eclairize the myths Asiatic, the primitive fables. So this India is the land of primitive fables. All those beautiful fables, the stories which inspire generation after generation of the world to achieve the rational, democratic, cultured, civilized life force. So India is the teacher of knowledge. India is the teacher of vision. India is the visionary light. From the ancient times through the middle till the modern times. Not you alone, proud truths of the world, nor you alone, ye facts of modern science, but myths and fables of old Asia's, Africa's fables. So he is telling you, modern science, you don't feel proud. You are not the proud truths of the world. You are not the only proud truths of the world. Why? Because there are fables, the myths and fables of Asia's and Africa's fables. Asia and Africa, they were having the most ancient civilizations. They were the most developed people, having greatest development of knowledge and imagination. So imagination, knowledge and scientific or rational achievements, these are all related, and all these are being inspired by these two continents because they were having the most ancient, well developed civilizations. The far darting beams of the spirit, the unloosed dreams, the deep diving Bibles and legends, the daring plots of the poets, the elder religions, O you temples fairer than lilies poured over the rising sun. And now he is describing his vision of India his vision of Africa. Here India, in this poem, passage to India is not passage only to India, it is passage beyond India. India stands as a metaphor for all those ancient civilizations, all those marvelous achievements of man in the past, which encouraged, which inspired the modern world to take shape out of the dark Middle Ages. The dark Middle Ages, which lost itself to heresy, blind faiths, superstition. From the inspiration of the past, the modernity is coming out of that dark phase to bring the light of rationality and giving birth to modern science. So he is telling daring plots of the poets, so the literature of this land, the elder religions, all those ancient religions from the Hinduism to others. O you temples fairer than lilies poured over by the rising sun, and the temples, beautiful temple, majestic temples on which the rising sun, the sunlights are falling and making it very bright and translucent. O you fables spurning the known, eluding the hold of the known, mounting to heaven, you lofty and dazzling towers, pinnacled red as roses, burnished with gold, towers of fables, immortal fashioned from mortal dreams. O India, these lands, these ancient lands, they are full of the tall, bright towers. And what are the towers suggesting? The towers are suggesting the height of human imagination, the height of human passion, the height of human civilization. So these towers, because the towers, they indicate the achievement of man, how far we have come out of our grossness. So there is the great Trojan War, and what the poet writes there? The poet writes, even in the English play, the character is talking about Helen. Oh, for thy beauty, those towers of Troy were burnt. So these towers, which represent human achievement, human excellence, they are inspiring modern science. You too I welcome and fully the same as the rest, you too with joy I sing. So he is telling, I also sing for you, old civilizations, I will sing for you India, I sing for you Africa, your literature, your religion, your epics, your myths, all I celebrate. I am not celebrating only America, I am celebrating the whole world, all the people, all the knowledge, all the experiences. Passage to India, lo soul, seest thou not God's purpose from the first? The earth to be spanned, connected by network, the races, neighbors to marry and be given in marriage, the oceans to be crossed, the distant brought near, the lands to be welded together. So the poet is hoping, the poet expects, the poet subscribes that we are all human beings. We cannot be divided by race, by language, by boundaries of space or nature. This world will be connected. Science will connect it. Science will overcome the natural barriers, and literature, poetry will overcome the barriers of all language, culture. There will be marriages between different people. There will be migrations crossing to each other's land. distant brought near. There should not be any distance. Distance should be reduced by the new science. The lands to be welded together. A worship new I sing, you captains, voyagers, explorers, yours, you engineers, you architects, mechanists, yours, you not for trade or transportation only, but in God's name and for thy sake, O soul. And he's telling, in this new brave world of modern era, the captains, the voyagers, the explorers, engineers, mechanics, he's imploring everyone, he is inspiring everyone, he is requesting everyone, you go on and on and on, march on and on and on, achieve the greatest things for the world, but not for trade or transportation only. What we have achieved by science, it is not only limited to its physical use. The rail network is not to carry the people and goods from one place to another, but in the God's name and for thy sake, O soul, you should also carry, science should also carry forward, bring together, bring nearer cultures, civilizations, religions, beliefs, imaginations. We should be all, the world must be a smaller and smaller place. And we should be united more and more as the global community, the global village. Passage to India. Lo, shoal for thee of W. Twain. I see in one the Suez Canal initiated opened. I see the procession of steamships, the Empress Eugenians leading the van. In the first part, he is singing the song of celebration. In the second part, he is talking about the ancient civilization, its contribution to the new, and praying for the greater coming together of the new and the old. And in the third, now he is imagining that he is able to see how the Suez Canal is being inaugurated. There is the procession of steamers, and in those steamships, Empress Eugenie, who was the last empress of France, and she came to inaugurate the Suez Canal, because that part of the land, both in Africa and Asia, they were the French colonies. So, the Empress Eugenians leading the van, I mark from the deck the strange landscape, the pure sky, the level sand in the distance. I pass swiftly the picturesque groups, the workmen gathered, the gigantic dredging machines. So he is marveling at the great gigantic dredging machines. He is celebrating the machine, he is celebrating the man, he is celebrating the land, he is celebrating the sky, water, whatnot. To Whitman, everything in this world is an object of celebration. Everything in this world is a thing of beauty, a thing of the unscrutable part of the great soul. In once again different, yet thine, all thine, O soul, the same, I see over my own continent the Pacific Railroad surmounting every barrier. After imagining about the Suez Canal, now he is imagining the Pacific Railroad traveling from the east coast of America to the western coast, and what he saw along. I see continual trains, cars winding along Platte, that is a river in Nebraska, carrying freight and passengers. I hear the locomotives rushing and roaring, and the shrill stream whistle. I hear the echoes reverberate through the grandest scenery in the world. So many steamboats, cars, locomotives, they are going and coming. It is a grand scene, as if the whole world is coming nearer. There is no distance left. I cross the Laramine plains. I note the rocks in grotesque shapes, the buttes I see in glimpses afar, towering immediately above me the great mountains. While traveling in the train, he is coming across different shapes of landscapes, beauties of America in east, in central, in western. Great mountains, great rivers, great lands, and whatnot. Towering immediately above the great mountains, I see the Wind River and the Wasatch Mountains. I see the Monument Mountain and the Eagle's Nest. I pass the promontory. I ascend the Nevadas. These are all the landmarks that he is coming across, and he is awestruck. He is very pleasantly surprised that he is able to see all these things from the moving train, which was impossible just few months ago. And I scan the noble Elk Mountain and wind around its base. I see the Humboldt Range. I thread the valley, cross the river, clear waters of Lake Tahoe. I see forest of majestic pines or crushing the great desert, the alkaline plains. I behold enchanting mirages of waters. So many beautiful sceneries of nature he is coming across, marking through these, and after all, in duplicate slender lines, bridging the 3,000 or 4,000 miles of land travel. Was unimaginable. 3,000 and 4,000 miles of travel was only possible because of the Pacific rail line. So he is telling, I am awestruck, I am surprised that all these things I could see in my life. I am wonderstruck. Tying the eastern to the western sea, the road between Europe and Asia. So if Suez Canal joined Europe with Asia, this Pacific Railroad joined the east of America with the west of America. Zenos, thy dream. He is telling Zenos. Zenos means Columbus. Columbus was coming from a small republic, Zeno, in Italy. So he is telling, Zenos, by thy dream, O Columbus, you dreamt in those days that you will sail your ship to India, which was unimaginable. And now it is possible. Centuries after thou art laid in thy grave, the shore thou foundest verifies thy dream. After centuries of your death, the shore thou foundest verifies thy dream. Your dream is verified. Your dream is becoming true for the common man. And unless you dreamt, now these things would never have been achieved. So science has achieved because of the old dreams, dreams of the poets, dreams of the myths, dreams of the epics, dreams of the explorers. So science, modernity are not alone. They are inspired by the past. So in this way, he is giving his tribute to Columbus, that for Columbus, these things are possible now. So in this way, what we find, that passage to India begins with a description to the new marvel of the modern world and how they are the part of a great movement from the past, a great design of the God. And Whitman talks about exploration, expansion and future throughout this poem. Though the title suggests that the poem is focused on India as a place of exploration, but it is a metaphor. We will discuss more about it in our next class. Until then, you please read the poem and we will discuss it further. Thank you.